Hi, sixth graders. It is science lesson of the day. I am back outside because we are still talking about biology kind of things. And I am in just like a little section of my backyard, and I am using this as our habitat for the day because I am talking about things that can affect a habitat or make up a habitat. And today I'm going to talk about two new words. And the first word is, sorry, while I put these papers down. The first word is biotic factors. I made that word, or the Greek root bio, green. And our knowledge of that Greek root, hopefully you remember bio means life. And so biotic factors are all living things that make up a habitat or make up an ecosystem. And they can have an effect on every other living thing. Because as you saw in yesterday's food chain and food webs, all living things are kind of dependent upon each other. So biotic factors are all the living things that make up a habitat. There is an endless list of biotic factors. If I asked you to make a list of every living thing in the world, we couldn't do it. We would be here for literally ever. But in this particular habitat, you can just see some trees and some grass, and you can maybe hear some birds. There are still a lot of biotic factors in this area. So again, biotic factors, all living things in habitat. So these trees are living things. The grass and the weeds, those are living things. The pine cones, I don't know if you can see them, but there are some pine cones on the ground and some pine needles. Those are living things. And I want to clarify that living things, biotic factors, also take into account once living things. So for example, those pine needles on the ground, if you can see them, they are obviously dead. They are no longer growing on that tree, but since they were living at one point, they are still considered biotic factors. The birds that you may or may not hear, but we know they're up there, those are biotic factors. I am sure there are insects in this soil. Those are biotic factors. There could be squirrels in this habitat, chipmunks. There could be raccoons. There can be dogs and cats. There can be mice. Any living thing in this habitat, that is considered a biotic factor. Now, the other kind of opposite of that are considered abiotic factors. And I made that A red. Usually when there is a prefix or a root, even just the letter A, abiotic, that means the opposite. So in this case, this means not living things. Now, that does not mean dead. Dead things are still considered biotic because they were once living. So if we were to find, like I said, these dead pine needles, if we were to find a dead mouse or a dead fly, that's biotic. It was still living. So you may be thinking, well, what in the heck is not living then, an abiotic factor? Non-living things that can affect a habitat, a lot of them we can't see. I want you to think about what could affect these trees, the grass, and the animals that live here. What could affect them? Something that's not living. There is, a list of abiotic factors. And this is a pretty complete list. We can come up with a list of all the abiotic factors. So I wonder if you said sun, because sun is an abiotic factor. It is not a living thing, but it affects everything in a habitat. Temperature affects a habitat and the living things in a habitat. So I've come up with a pretty detailed and pretty final list. There may be a few more. So weather is considered an abiotic factor. Temperature. Rocks are not living, but they can certainly affect a habitat. A lot of animals depend on rocks to live under or to live on, especially in a water habitat. Animals like turtles, they depend on rocks to get up out of the water sometimes. So rocks are abiotic. Water is an abiotic factor. Obviously, animals that need water to live, that's a really important factor for them. But as well as like rainwater, and that can affect living things. Any kind of soil, whether it be sand or dirt, is a non-living thing that can affect a habitat. Air or oxygen, that is absolutely necessary. And if that air is polluted in some way, that can affect a habitat. And that last one there is probably the most important. Sunlight. Sunlight is another abiotic factor that can affect a habitat. So we have biotic factors, living or once living, could be dead. And abiotic factors, non-living things that can affect a habitat or an ecosystem. So I hope those make sense to you and you can start to understand the difference between those two things. I'm going to give you an activity to practice biotic versus abiotic factors today for science. And that is the end of our week already. I hope you enjoyed science this week and maybe learned some new things, learned some new vocabulary words that go with science. And I hope that you can get out and experience some of these biotic and abiotic factors. So I hope you have a great weekend and stay safe, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.